Hi everyone and welcome to this week's video. This week we're having a look at some of the gardening jobs I need to do in the flower patch this July. I've got lots and lots to catch up on. It's been a very busy end of school term, a lot of activities on, and a lot of my jobs have gone by the wayside a little bit, so I've got some catching up to do. So I'll have a look at some of the things that I have been concentrating on in the last week. And at the moment, the weather has been so unpredictable. We're not really having the heat wave that down south near London is having. It has stayed warm, but we've had very dark days. It's been very cloudy. We've had some rain and we've had an awful lot of windy weather, which hasn't been great for the flowers in the garden. And that's where it's really important to be getting that support in. And I definitely had some in place, but I wasn't quite as organised as I wanted to be this year, and I'm playing catch up a little bit, so I'm just making sure everything is extra supported now, because I think going through this summer we're just going to keep getting this unpredictable weather where we have one nice day followed by one not so nice day. And you can still see here with the cornflowers moving around that it's still quite breezy. Another thing we need to keep looking at is we need to be looking at deadheading things to keep the flowers coming, and we need to look at those final sowings of seeds for later in the summertime. So let's go around the flower patches and have a look and see what I've been doing. So first up, we're here by the cornflowers. That's a good place to start. And these have been supported, but the weather really has been moving them around. And some of the flowers have got quite rain damaged. Others have just got their stems bent. You might be able to see here that we have got some broken stems and things, so you might just be able to see that one there is bent over. So what I need to go around is with the snips and just cut a lot of this back, so that it can regrow from the base, get some nice long stems again. And with cornflowers, you can just snip the heads off up here if you wanted to, but you would then find you were getting new flower buds coming from what was already there, but you wouldn't be getting new long stems. So if you do want nice long stems for bouquets or arranging at home, you want to be cutting from further down. So we're going to get our snips and have a look at what we can sort out here in the cornflower patch. So you're sacrificing maybe some buds to take off the cornflowers that are finished, but by cutting them from further down, that means that you should get nice long stems when the next ones come through. There's another one that's finished there, and we've sacrificed a few buds, but more will come. At this time in the season, it is a constant cutting of sweet peas to keep them going for as long as possible. So the more you cut your sweet peas, the more they'll come again, and we don't want any seed pods forming by missing a few days of cutting, because that's when you start to decrease in flower production. They're looking absolutely gorgeous at this time of year. The only thing that I find trouble with at this time of year is that the stems get a lot shorter. So I start off the season with lovely, nice, long 30 centimetre plus stems, and then now they're kind of more like 15 centimetre stems, so much shorter, which is great for using in jam jar posies and smaller jars, but not so good for bouquets. So if anybody has got any good tips on how to keep your sweet pea stem length going through a longer period of time over many weeks in the summer, that would be fantastic to know, because they definitely shorten for me after probably about 4 weeks or so, a month. They are starting to get shorter. So it's early morning on a Friday today, and I have just come out and I have been cutting my sweet peas for the stall jam jar posies today, and these are going to smell absolutely delicious. And I have to keep doing this every day so that we keep the sweet peas going for as long as possible. So I need to get these straight into water just now, but I'm going to show you one on the sweet pea frame here that has formed a seed pod, just to show you one that I missed and I need to cut off just now, because that's what we don't want to happen. Otherwise our sweet peas will stop flowering. So this is a sweet pea round the back that I have missed, and it is fully out. It's past its best now, and so you wouldn't use it in a flower arrangement. But it's also, as you can see here, produced a seed pod, and if you let sweet peas get to the stage where they've produced a seed pod, then they will stop producing flowers. So you need to make sure that you cut this stem down, and also that we try and cut the sweet peas and keep on top of them enough that they don't get to the stage where they produce seed pods. So if I chop the stem just now, it may well keep flowering again. We will watch and see what happens if I've got it in enough time. If I let lots of stems on my trellis here develop sweet pea seed heads like this, then there would start to be a much lower production of sweet peas altogether. So to keep my production high for the next few weeks, I need to keep cutting every day and make sure that I don't miss any of these and that they don't get to this stage. So one of the jobs that I'm doing this week is that I am digging up all the finished Ranunculus and Anemones, and you can tell that they're starting to finish because they've not got any new flowers coming through on them, and the foliage is starting to yellow and brown, and that's just a sign that they've finished flowering for the year and starting to go dormant. If they were still really lush and green, I would be leaving them in the ground because that'll be feeding energy into the corm for next year. But when they're starting to get to the stage where they're yellowing and browning, it's time to dig them out, so we've got space for other flowers in the bed. And these I will dry off in the greenhouse. I'll lay them out on trays, and then when they're nice and dry, I'll pop them into paper bags and store them inside in a dry environment until the autumn, when I'll start pre-sprouting them again. So I'm just inserting my knife under here, lift it gently, and then we should just be able to pull the corm out. So you can see all the roots on there and lots of soil. It's been quite damp recently, so that just needs to lay out in the tray to dry off. We'll find another one. You could leave them in the ground if you wanted to, but they take up bed space and they're not guaranteed on coming back the next year. You might want them in a different place as well. Here's another one. Now, I'd already started to plant some things in the beds here to save on time, so they'll have much more space to grow on now that the Ranunculus are coming out. And there's another one over there. You just have to be careful not to damage the corms, but they do lift out fairly easily. And some will be bigger than other ones. That's a fairly small one, that one. But you can already see that it's starting to clear up nicely the bed for other things to grow on. Another one here. Lots of roots on that. So I'll continue down the bed, just taking out any that I can see that are finished. So once I've dug up the Ranunculus from the garden and the Anemones, I have been popping them into trays in the greenhouse to dry off. And once the corms are all nice and dry, I'll pop them into brown paper bags and I'll store them in a dry cupboard in the house until I'm ready to pre-sprout them again in the autumn time. Not long until we have sunflowers now, and I've been making sure that I've been individually staking all of my sunflowers because I didn't put horizontal netting on the beds before I put them in. So they grew too fast to put the horizontal netting over the top safely, so each is been individually staked. And we've definitely needed that in the last week or two because it has been really quite blustery, wild, windy weather. And it's actually taken a tree down in the garden, it's been that wild. But these have all come through safely because they have been staked. The thing that I need to get on top of is the dahlia staking because I missed doing that at the time of planting, which I shouldn't have done. I should have staked at the time of planting. Luckily the plants are still quite small because we haven't had that warm sunny weather. It has been fairly cold and it has been very dull days, very little sunshine. So the dahlias haven't come on that much, so I've got time to still stake them before they grow taller. Here's some sunflowers that were planted about a month later, so these are all another succession sowing and they'll flower later for me, and these will all need to be individually staked as well. At this stage I could put horizontal netting over these because they're still small and they'll grow through that fine, so that's an alternative, either the netting or the stakes, but definitely something so that they don't topple in the wind. So today I'm doing one of the jobs that I've got really behind on. I've got my dahlias into the ground, but I didn't stake them. Usually what I do is I stake them when I pop them in, and then I put the horizontal netting over the top. But I've left it a few weeks and they're starting to really grow now, and they do need staking. You can just get away with it when you first put them in because they're still fairly small plants, but now they are starting to take off. So this is really the time to do it. Otherwise I'll have lost my chance, and it's much more difficult to put horizontal netting over things once they have really got tall. So I'm putting in a few stakes along the bed on some of the bigger dahlias at the moment, and then I've got my posts at the end of the bed. I've got one here, another one here, and then some more up there, and I am just laying the horizontal netting across. And this is quite a big bit, so I'm actually going to cut it because I'll be able to use that on another bit further up the bed and split it in two, which will be quite good. And we have had quite a lot of rain and wind in the last few days, so you will lose dahlias and they will snap very easily in the wind, so it's definitely worth giving them some support. So this is plastic netting, but I do reuse it every year, so it can last a long time if you manage to look after it. And I make the most of it on the beds if I can by stretching over as big an area as I can and cutting it to size so that I don't waste any bits. I can cut the excess off here and use it further up the bed. It's easier to work with the netting at height first, stretch it over and cut it where you need to, and then lower it down to where the dahlias are once you're happy. So I'll just lower this down just now. So I'm not going to worry about these dahlias so much now when the windy weather comes. I'll know that they've got good support on them. There we go. You can see that there's lots of nice netting there to support these dahlias as they come up. And there we go, first dahlia bud of the year appearing now. I have got some nibbled leaves, so I think I'm going to have to come at night time with a torch and find the slugs that may well be eating the leaves. But it's exciting to see our first dahlia flower. I'm just snipping across here to make another length for the next bit up, which has got nigella in it, and that also needs supporting because it's getting really tall now. So staking really is so important here in Scotland because the weather is so unpredictable. We're not going to have a summer of nice, calm, sunny weather on a daily basis. It just, this season, can't make up its mind what it's doing. One minute it's raining and it's really quite breezy and windy. Next minute it's calmer and the sun comes out, and then again an hour later it's changing. It's really inconsistent this year and I can't keep up with it. So definitely need to be supporting our flowers, otherwise I'm going to lose them all, which is really tragic when you have put so many months and days into growing them from seed. These nigella here are going to be the second succession sowing coming through, so these are the ones that were sown in January time and they're going to be flowering now. So the ones that I sowed in the autumn have just finished this week, so that shows you the importance of succession sowing, that you do need to keep doing it at different points in the year so that you get flowers all the way through the growing season. So this week I've got more horizontal netting in place for these cosmos to grow up through, so they're starting to take off now and they will grow up through the netting as they get a bit bigger, and that'll support them later on in the summer. Other things you can do if you don't have any horizontal netting is you can put a couple of posts along the length of your bed and then run some twine along the edge, and this just helps to hold some of the flowers up as well, like this Ami that you can see here. It's just being helped by a cane, and I've tied loosely a bit of baler twine around it, and then there's some twine going around the bed that's just holding it up. So lots of different ways that you can provide support for your plants. So another job in July is cutting back all of the flowers that bloomed in May. So we've got lots of new ones coming here. You can see the feverfew just starting to come through here just now. But at the back of the feverfew, we're starting to get in a bit of a mess. So we've got the perennial cornflowers, which have done really well, but have started to flop over now and need cut back. And then we've got the Ranunculus pleno, which is finished and needs cut back. You can see that the petals are dropping all over the leaves now, so that shows that's finished. And then up here at the back, We had some lovely Hesperus flowering, but you can see that it's completely finished now and it's ready to get cut back. And I'll show you in a minute, these massive long stems are going to get cut right back down off at the base, and then we should get some new growth coming through, and we might actually get some flowering stems in September if we do this just now. So let's have a look at some that I've already cut back. So here are the old flowering stems of the Hesperus, and I have cut a few off this already, and I'm going to finish going round in a minute. So I'm going to chop these off at the base, here, 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 all the way around. You can see these old stems, and already you can see here all this new growth coming through. And we need to chop the old stems away so that the new growth can get some light and some space to grow up. If we just left these old flowering stems on, then they wouldn't get enough light, they wouldn't do very well. And also if you just left the old flowering stems on and the new leaf growth didn't come through, you wouldn't have any chance of getting that second flush of flowers in September time. So let's go and finish off chopping these stems. So end of June, beginning of July jobs, really good to get in the garden and just cut back all of these May flowering blooms. So other ones, so Hesperus is one that I'm doing, Astrantia is another one that I will be cutting back, Jacob's Ladder, Aquilegia, these are all stems that have finished flowering now and need to be taken off. So we're going to cut back all these perennial cornflowers today that have fallen over and have largely finished their first flush of flowering, and then I'll show you the bed and what is left with the new growth coming through after that for more future flowers. So here we are, the perennial cornflowers have got some new growth coming through now that it's all chopped back. And these will produce lovely big bushy plants again, lots of lovely growth on them and more flowers. Another job for the end of June, beginning of July is to sow those final annual seeds for hopefully flowering at the end of the summer, beginning of the autumn, before the first frosts come in, because all of my earlier annuals will have finished flowering by then. So this is just about succession sowing and keeping the flower season going. So you need to go for ones that are going to germinate quickly and flower quite quickly. So you need a short window from sowing the seed to flowering, and Phacelia is one of those for me. So I have found some clear bed space, which is unusual for me at this time of year. Normally I don't have very much, I've got everything packed to the gunnels in here, but I've managed to clear this bed after the bulbs, put some new compost in, and I'm now going to just direct sow some Phacelia seeds into it, and hopefully when we come back and do some videos in September we'll see all of these flowering. So I've got some seed compost in a minute that I'm just going to put over the top, and then we'll have some nice new flowers. So today is the 29th of June, so we'll do an experiment and see how long does it take this Phacelia to flower for us. We'll follow it all the way through the summer and see when that first flowering date is, and then we can record this so that we know for next year. Annuals that you sow at this time of year will never be as strong and as big plants as if you sowed them in the autumn and they overwintered, but they still put on a really nice show of flowers. So I'm just lightly scattering some seed compost over the top of the seeds in the bed, just lightly covering them, they don't need a big covering. And then it's been raining a lot today, so I'll watch the weather. If a lot of rain comes down and waters the bed, then that's grand, and if it doesn't, then I'll come out and give the bed a water. Get those seeds off to a good start. So having a shot at succession sowing is really important, and just remembering to keep it going until the end of June and beginning of July to get those annuals in so that you'll have some late summer flowers. And we'll wait and see, it's all going to depend on the weather, but it's definitely been worthwhile. Now I haven't put those in special distinct rows, I have just scattered them in my bed there more as a wildflower look, as an experiment, and if I get them all germinating in clumps and things I can thin out the seedlings later and move them around a little bit. But it is more of an experiment than anything else, because this is the 29th of June, so it's getting quite late in the day for putting these last annuals in. And I don't know whether if you're gardening in Scotland at the moment and you're getting plagued by the midges again, but certainly in the last week we've had a lot of damp, warm, muggy weather, and it has definitely brought them out again. So it's time to get the smidge out and the Avon Skin So Soft, and make sure you've got all your clothing tucked in so that you don't get nibbled too much. But I've certainly started to get the first midgy bites of the season now. I hope you enjoyed today's video, finding out about what I've been doing in the flower patches in the last week to catch up. And things like getting your support in place, and make sure that you've got this in your garden, especially if you're in Scotland this year, because it really is an unpredictable season of weather at the moment, where we just don't know what we're getting from one day to the next. So if you put all that hard work into growing your flowers, make sure they're well supported, and keep cutting back those sweet peas so that you keep getting those flowers for the next few weeks. And hopefully nearer the end of July we're going to start seeing some of those lovely dahlias and things coming through. Next couple of weeks I'm going to be doing some videos on seasonal summer bouquets, wrapping bouquets, and having a look at zinnias as well. Zinnias is something that I'm really trying hard to get flowering every year if I can at the moment, and that's quite a hard task here in Scotland, especially in a summer like this where it's not that warm. But I'm going to give it a really good go and we'll see if we can get some flowers.